we will have a digital pitching exercise. So my name is Edward. I work as a project manager for the European Business and Innovation Center Network, one of the implementing partners of the InnoRate project. And today I'll be your moderator. All right, as always, we have a packed agenda for you today. We'll start off by an introduction to the InnoRate project and its service platform, after which Fadi will delve into how to get ready for your investment pitch, and we'll touch base on how to make your business idea understandable, how to tailor your pitch to your investors, and how to perform a convincing pitch. After which we'll allow for a short but interactive Q&A. So please prepare your questions, which you can ask during the Q&A session. We'll have a small break for 5 minutes for you to stretch your legs and get a coffee, and also get ready for the actual digital pitching exercise. I'll quickly introduce the format and the rules of the exercise. We can count on the support of 4 experts hailing from the EBN network. I'll be presenting the experts towards the end of this workshop, and then we'll split the selected companies into 2 different coaching sessions. So I hope everyone is okay with this agenda, and without further ado, I am very pleased to introduce you to our expert today, Fadi. He's the Director of Business of Chemonics International, the Lebanon Enterprise Development Project. He's also an associate partner of Uperion, which is also a member of the EBN network. Has 17 years of international experience, across different fields, with a focus obviously on entrepreneurship, and he specializes in supporting companies in the field of growth strategies and tech innovation. He's also a business consultant and mentor with different organizations across Europe, Africa, Middle East, and India. He's a member of the advisory board of the InnoRate project, but also a member of the advisory board of the InnoBit project, which supports startups and scale-ups to grow and commercialize their space solutions. So very happy to have Fadi on board today. And without further ado, let us quickly introduce InnoRate in a nutshell. So for those of you who don't know what the InnoRate project is about, InnoRate is a EU-funded project under the Horizon 2020 project. The main objective is really to drive the move towards the development of a EU financial system in which highly innovative and tech-driven SMEs have easier access to the right financing solutions to scale and grow. And to do that, InnoRate has developed a service platform. And the way the platform operates is that we basically link innovative SMEs together with investors, and this is done through an objective and forward-looking technology rating methodology. As you may see from the slide, InnoRate is being implemented by a total of 9 partners. And really, the way we like to describe InnoRate is by the following. So InnoRate brings innovation to finance and finance to innovation. That is InnoRate in a nutshell. But of course, if you'd like to have more information about the project and how this project can support you in your growth, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find our email addresses via the EBN website. And without further ado, I would like to touch base on an important topic, which would give us a bit of context as to why the InnoRate project was created in the first place. And this is, to look at the barriers to financing highly innovative SMEs in the European context. And one of the main elements to consider when looking at these barriers is the capacity of investors to assess or rate disruptive and market creating innovations. Now, the real question is, why is that, right? Well, firstly, what we found out is that innovation, and this is especially true for innovation in high growth sectors, are characterized by high technological manufacturing and market complexity. Obviously, this leads to the assessments of these innovations requiring an in-depth market expertise on the one hand, but also an in-depth technological understanding on the other hand as well. And what we found out through our research is that often investors do not necessarily undertake these assessments due to the lack of, on the one hand, technological expertise. Obviously, to be able to assess a specific innovation, for instance, in a sector such as nanotechnologies, requires an in-depth knowledge, right? And sometimes investors may not necessarily have this knowledge, but also it's a question of timing. Obviously, it takes a lot of time to be able to assess if that innovation is going to be the next big thing, and sometimes investors lack time to do so. So that's one of the first barriers that we found out, especially true in the European context. The second element is it has to do with data. As you know, data is king, and specifically the data that will facilitate the assessment of a market potential, and also the trying to understand the risk involved with a specific innovations. As you know, nowadays data is extremely hard to find, costly to access, and sometimes just simply missing. Data is also scattered across the internet, provided in different formats, which as you know, makes it extremely hard to analyze and examine. And data has access restrictions and prices imposed on their use. And this is exactly where the InnoRate project, with its service platform, tries to fill in the gap by tackling these barriers that are currently being faced by European SMEs. The concept is very, very simple. So it's a service platform that is aimed at supporting investors and lenders to sort of prioritize and finance innovative SMEs that have great growth potential. So if you're an SME that has this great this growth potential, we can support you by better understanding the potentials and the risks involved with your innovations through a deep assessment methodology. We can make your prospects clear to investors. We have some VCs already registered on the platform. We can rate your innovation very easily, in which we match you with an expert in the field who's going to do a deep assessment of the innovation potential of your company and your solution. We can mitigate the investors' perceived financial risks, and we can help support you by getting easier and fast access to the right financing solutions in order to grow and scale. That is InnoRate in a nutshell. All right, so now that we've presented a bit of the context of the InnoRate project, and also the service platform and the solution that InnoRate brings to the table, I'd like to allow as much time as possible for the actual topic of today's presentation, in which we've kindly invited Fadi to provide you with the ins and the do's and don'ts on how to get ready for your investment pitch. So that's all on my end. I would like to pass on the floor to Fadi today. But just before that, I'll stop sharing my screen, and Fadi, maybe you can start sharing your screen after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward, for the introduction. I'll be sharing my screen now. Just let me know if it's working.
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my knowledge regarding how you need to get yourself ready to pitch in front of an investor. And as Edward said, we're going to talk about how to make your business idea understandable, how to tailor your pitch, and how to perform a convincing pitch that is tailored to your investor. Before we start to do so, if you can see here in the screen, it's really hard to identify to which port this ship is sailing. And this is the one thing that you want to avoid when pitching in front of investors. So you want them to perceive you like you really know where you are, you really know where you want to be, and which is the specific route that you want to follow in order to reach that stage. And definitely, you know exactly what do you need. We're going to see why this summary is really important. So all what we're going to see now, if you want, have a sole target to present your company in such a way to be perceived in the eye of the investor. So we will start first by how to make a business idea understandable. We all fall victim to our the curse of knowledge, we call it. We know our product very well, we know the technology very well, and we tend to explain it to the audience based from our eyes. So we always think about what I want to say to my audience, while we should transform and think, what does my audience need to hear? So getting it from the audience perspective. And this is a very important point so you can relay the right message. And that's why under this umbrella, we focus on four main topics, which is get to know your audience, choose the one thing that you want them to remember, give it context, use examples, and watch your language while you're presenting to your audience. And we're going to dive deep each one of these. So, getting to know your audience. It's very important because you need to use some terminology, some examples that relate to your audience, who they are, what's the most important thing for them. Maybe they are coming from scientific background or from purely business background or tech background. So you need to understand so you can use the right vocabulary, the right language, and the right example. For you to do so, definitely beforehand, you're going to receive a list of who are the investor present in the panel or during the meeting. Search the web for some article, for some interviews, webinar, panels they participated in. Try to understand their perspective, their understanding, how they express, what kind of vocabulary they use. And this is strategy that you need to follow. So when you're presenting to these specific people, you can use those tricks so they can relate, so you can connect very fast to them and relay the message that you want to relay to them. Next, you need to choose what's the most important thing that they need to remember after your presentation. What the reasoning behind here, because each one of your investment panel, has a different interest, a different concern. Some of them focus on the financial part only, on the revenue. Other focus on the impact. Some focus on the technology. So what is the key message that you want them to remember? For example, this is a food testing device. The key message that the startup, the entrepreneur wanted to relay, it's a handheld, it's neat, it's nice, you can carry it wherever you want. Its functionality is totally different. But the most important thing, because this was the killer point versus his competitor, he wanted the audience to remember that it's elegant, it's neat, you can carry it on wherever you want, and it can fit within your pocket. Next, we need to talk about a context. So, wherever way that you present whatever you need, you can present it indifferently. For example, you've done a research, you know your key player, and now you want to present your idea to them. You can go by, hey, I had this new idea, it will save us some time and effort, and I need X budget to do it. That's a good presentation. But what if, for example, rather than presenting this way, you present it the following way. You go to your board, you want to present your idea, you say to them, we're talking here a specific example about expense tracking. So your company spending a lot of time and effort, 50% of your employee your team spent around 50 hours per week just to report expenses. It's a huge effort that they're doing. To simplify things, you go to your board and you say, what's the one thing that no one likes doing? Travel expense reporting. We have 50 team members doing it on a weekly basis. We can reduce that time by 75% if we allocate a small budget to back our AI internal developed expense reporting application. So by that, you just presented it from a benefit perspective. So you highlighted the benefit, you highlighted the transformation. Instead of just talking about that we have this problem, it is a pain in the ass, we need to reduce our time spent on this problem. Just highlight directly the benefit of what they should be looking for. Next, we need to watch our language. Not all your audience are expert in your field or understand the jargon that you're using. So we want to avoid this scenario when you're talking to investor and they start began some question. What does it mean? I will give you one example. One of the startups that I worked with, they developed an IoT device that can detect early on Ceratitis capitata fly. When they were presenting, they used the name Ceratitis capitata. Most of the investment palatants, they were 6. One of them only understood because he was from agriculture background. 5 didn't have a clue what they're talking about. But this same fly that affects the crop have a commercial name that's known to everyone, which is called the medfly. So by shifting just the naming to medfly, which is something that's known to everyone, your audience directly can relate to what you're saying. So try always to break down complex ideas that can be super challenging to very simplistic day-to-day vocabulary. If you had to use acronym or specific jargon, make sure that you explain what does it mean, so your audience can connect and understand, and they will not be disconnected the rest of your presentation. Now, let's talk what kind of tools you can use so you can relay a message. Relaying a message can be done in many different ways. Let's say how you can relay a message. We're going to take an example, okay? For example, we want to explain to someone how they can shoot an arrow. If you want to talk about the stance, we can say like developing your stance, you have the squared stance, the open stance, and the closed stance. Then we'll drill down in the explanation. So logically, using a diagram format, the audience can very easily relate to the concept which we are displaying. And in think chart, in process flow, in mind map, this is the kind of tool that you want to use. Another tool that you use, it is we call it a deconstruct, which is you dissect your concept, start small and expand so you can reach your target. For example, in positioning the bow, you can start by holding bow arm straight out, open up hand, set bow in the middle of the V shape, keep a grip, finger should be at least 45%. So we are walking our audience step by step by dissecting our concept so they can clearly relate. So if you are explaining a really complex concept and it is a killer factor and you have to explain it, make sure you use this kind of presentation so you dissect it and make it very easily for the audience to understand it. Another way might be comparison. Compare to something that your audience used to interact with on a daily basis and they can understand. For example, if you want to explain to them how they should hold the bowstring, for example, here they are comparing it to a hook shape. So everyone knows what a hook is. When using a simple figure and a simple explanation, directly they can relate. So we're drawing here on similarity, or even you can draw on differences to something that they already know. So the analogy will link them to what you're trying to explain. Next, we can draw a picture. Here it's a self-explanatory. It's a very detailed picture talking about the different feature, a different element. So whoever going to see that picture clearly can imagine your solution, draw it in her head, and start thinking about it. Another way, which is background mapping. We take our audience by starting at the end in mind and discuss how you can go back. So essentially, this is what we call reverse engineering. So we are reverse engineering the process. So here, for example, we can talk about visualizing the arrow hitting the target, mentally start relaxing, drawing set anchor, focusing on the target, finding your target instead of your eyes, then working on the posture and the technicality. Also, this is a very good technique. Or you can dissect it into chunk of information. For example, we can talk only about the arms, then the chest, then the fingers. So by dissecting it into packages, a chunk of information, it will be easier to your audience to understand the different part than how you can link them all together. So now we saw some tools and technique that are more aligned with communication. And now let's talk more about the actual pitch. Now, previously we talked about only some communication tools that you can use in any kind of presentation. Now, what about pitching? What's the purpose of a pitch? This is the main idea that this is the main trap that most of startups fall into. The purpose of pitch is not to get an investment, it's not to close a deal, but is to get you to the next step. So to trigger the investor desire to know more, to ask you to send your technical documentation, to ask you for a one-to-one meeting, like for half an hour, much more than your 5 to 10 minute pitch with Q&A. So the purpose of any pitch is not to close a deal. This is very important. The purpose is to go to the next step. So, and this strategy you need to adopt in the entire investment raising. So the investment raising, it's a long process. In the happiest scenario, it's 6 months, and it can go up to 18 months very easily. You need to keep in mind each step. Your purpose is to go to the next step, not to close the deal, just to go to the next step. So what investors are looking for in a pitch deck? So when you sit in front of an investor and they are hearing to you, they are looking on two things: the kind of return, the potential return that they're going to get if they invested in your firm, and what is the risk that might prevent them from getting that returns. And if it's balanced, it's a good to go. They will take you to the next phase. If it's not balanced, that's an alarming point. So that's in your mind, this is what you need to keep. So you need to highlight your return on the investment and the risk. This is the 2 points that you're being assessed by the investor. So now, okay, you need to start. Now we're going to talk about the a simple structure of pitches skeleton. This is one pitch skeleton out of many. Depending on the strategy that you want to use, and I will give some example, you can change this pitch skeleton. But one thing that it's common with all of them is your opening statement. You need to get your opening statement right, or what we call the elevator pitch. Since the beginning, they need to understand the pain. They need to understand that you know exactly your market, what's the idea and the technology behind your value proposition, what's unique about your innovation, if it's feasible or not. So you need to use, and we're gonna see later on how you can structure your opening statement. So slide 1 need to be about your elevator pitch, your opening statement, or your vision, as we just said, announcing your big idea in 10-15 seconds, so you can hook your audience and you can position their mind. So he's talking about this, has a solution for this problem, and he's doing it this way. Let's see the details. Then you start going into the detail. You start talking about the problem. What's the big problem that you're using? Why people are really suffering and care for this problem to be solved? Why they are still frustrated from the solution that already exists? So here you really need to give importance to the problem, because later on, the market opportunity is going to relate to the problem. Then you start talking about the product and service. So how your product work in a very simple step. Remember, you don't have to say anything in a pitch. Pitch, it's a teaser, it's a door opener, just to get them, as we said, interested enough to ask for more information. So you don't have to say everything here. Just mention how your product works in a very simple way and try to keep it visual as much as possible. Slide number 4, which is business model. Simply put, how you're going to make money out of your product or services. After that, you talk about your market opportunity. The problem you're solving, does it have enough market to be a sustainable business in the future or not? It can be an activity, a project that can last 6 or 12 months, and after that, you need to look for something else. So really understanding and explaining your market opportunity, it's important. You can do it bottom up or top down, depending on the industry that you are in. After the market opportunity, where do you stand in terms of validation? Traction validation are the most important factor after the team to your investor. Because this give a trust to the investor that you really know what you're talking about. You've been in the field. You validated with the people who's actually suffering from that problem. Or better, you have traction. You already have early adopter. You have some sales. So this is by itself, it's a strong validation that the product or services that you are offering actually have a market, not only on a pen and paper by a market analysis and market study, but actually your audience responded and they are buying your product. After the traction and validation, now we're going to talk about marketing and growth strategy. You need to explain how you will acquire your customer, how you're going to retain your customer. You're going to talk about your profitability, how you're going to scale, how you'll keep your product competitive. Is it easy to be copied by the competitor or your competitor to follow you, or how you're going to keep innovating to keep growing and to keep your product differentiated from others. Slide number 8. After you, if you can see with me, like there's a logic. We start with the product. The product led what kind of product or services that you're going to use to solve the problem. Sorry, you start with the problem. The problem led to what kind of product or service you're going to use in order to solve that problem. The business model say how you're going to make money out of this product or services, how much money you can make ultimately by talking about the market opportunity, the level of trust that you are providing that this product or service that you're offering actually have a market and have a demand by talking about the traction and validation and how you can keep growing in the future. But now is the moment of truth. What about your competitor? Is it easy to follow you? Are you really differentiated from your competitor? Here, simply, you can list your competitor, the features that make your product the solution for that problem, and see how your competitor are linked to those features. Do they provide some of them, a lot of them, none of them? So the investor have, if you want, a confidence that you can be in the market for on the long run. It's not like you added some feature, like in a month from now, when the competition discovers that you're in the market, they can just put some investment, develop those features, and launch it and drive you out of the market. Next, who's the team behind all what we talked about? And this is also another important factor to drive trust. You need to introduce the team clearly, saying the kind of experience and expertise that they have to transform the opportunity into a large profitable business. A lot of startup I see like they have the #1 tech expert in that problem, but they have no one on the business development or sales. It's a bad factor because a team needs to be complete. You need to have the tech side, you need to have the business side. If you don't have both, at least you need to show your investor that you know that you have some profile lacking and you actually need that investment in order to recruit those profiles that are going to help you to make it a successful business. After presenting the team, the strong heroes who's going to make this happen, you talk about financial. Financial here need to be very simple. It's a simple model. You need to have an explicit assumption how much money you can make in the next 3 to 5 years if you got the investment you're asking for. Don't worry, everyone knows that these numbers are not accurate. These numbers are going to change a lot, But the number one mistake that no one can forgive, if these numbers are not coherent with what you presented before. So if these numbers are not coherent with your business model, how you're going to make money, if they are not coherent with the size of the market opportunity, so you're gonna have issues. Again, everyone knows that your financials, they are not gonna be accurate, they need to be logical and coherent with what you presented as business model, as revenue stream, as the market opportunity, and the market size. After presenting your forecast, now the slides that most of the time the startup forget to put in place or even spend too much time on the first 8 or 9 slide and do quickly slide number 10, number 11, and which are the most important slide in your pitch deck. Here we're talking about investment, about money. So you really need to give time to slide number 11, which is the investment ask. So you're going to say clearly, after we've presented that, here, where do we stand right now? Here, where we want to go. This is how we're going to go there. Now we're going to ask, what do you need enable to make that journey successfully? This is the amount of money that you need. This is on how you're going to spend your money. Is it on completing your product development, hiring, for example, on HR, hiring businesses or sales or additional engineer, or buying raw materials? So you need clearly here to mention to your investor how much money do you need to make that journey to grow your company and how you are going to use that money. In brief, this is the pitch deck. The slide can be shifted depending on your industry. I will give you one example. If you are a fintech and you are witnessing tens and tens of fintech popping up every day, investors are really, if you want, a little bit frustrated. So whenever they hear since slide one that's not a fintech, so they start just rolling their eyes and saying, oh God, another dreamer in the fintech industry. So if you are in fintech, for example, it would be really a strong point to start with the team. Why? Because you need to relay the message since the beginning to the investor that we are a strong team. We've been in that industry for many, many years. We have the right technical expertise, the right business expertise to work in this field. So you establish trust since slide number one. So your strategy might be to have your team presentation as slide number one before saying all the other stuff that you need to say. But your investment pitch don't end here. Directly after your investment, you need to have some document ready with you. So your friend who's sitting behind the audience on his laptop, he has a draft email with these documents in the attachment. If an investor asks for it, he just insert the email and click send. Usually, if you were lucky and one of the investors, all of them got interested, they will ask you for more information. And this can be present with the following. You need to have an executive summary ready with you. The executive summary, it's 2 to 3 page overview of your business. So simply it's a document, okay, like providing in writing all the information that you just mentioned in the PowerPoint, okay? So it's an overview of your business, an executive summary. Next to it, you need to have your technical documentation ready. Why? If you're starting a tech company, a deep tech, a medical company, whatever, you may be asked to provide some additional detail on your technology. Investor in this type of company will often want to vet your technical claim with their pool of technical experts. So pay attention for that document not to have what we call your secret sauce, okay? So it's a tricky document. You need to put enough information so the investor can vet you with his pool of experts without revealing any secret sauce that you have. Next, he might ask you for your financial model. You had some claim in your presentation. Here, where do you stand right now? You need money so you can grow your company. And we presented in the pitch deck a simple table with 2 or 3 lines. Now they need to understand if you got this number right. So they need the details, how you come up with this number. So your financial model, your financial detail, your detailed P&L. And again, don't worry, they do understand that they are not 100% accurate, even they are 50 or 60% accurate. But again, the most important factor to have your financial coherent and right, not done in an amateur way. So just we're taking it lightly, we did an exercise. No, they need to understand that you really dig deep into your number, you understand your cost clearly, you understand the cost of goods sold, you understand what it takes to build your financial. Okay, they are not accurate, but at least they are coherent. With some help from the investor, they can be justified to become accurate depending on your actual growth plan. After that, also another important document that most of the time is neglected is your detailed market research. You claim that your business is tapping on a huge opportunity in market, multi-million or multi-billion even opportunity in the market. You need to justify this claim with a detailed market research. Most of the time, the detailed market research is not given the right importance. It's only like within the entire 1 or 2 pages within the entire business plan. That might serve in the early days, but when you're advancing, you need to have a separate document detailing your market research down to the comma, so you really understand the size of the opportunity, and for your investor to understand and to validate, if you want, and accept that actually this market opportunity is that big. So now, how to convince in general, how to perform a convincing pitch. So we talked about in the first section about communication tools and technique, and the second section we talked about the actual pitches structure. Now, how you need to strategize to perform a convincing pitch. Like any other presentation, you have an intro, you have the core content, and you have a closing. With the intro, as we said before, you need to get your opening statement right. For opening statement, I am providing you here a cheat sheet. Develop it the way you see suitable, and there is a lot most suitable for you. So in a 10-15 seconds, you say this: my company X is developing this kind of offering, so your value proposition, to help this targeted audience that they are suffering from that problem, to solve this specific problem with a specific secret sauce, without detailing the secret sauce, definitely just highlighting. For example, is it backed by AI or a new IoT electronic device, or what kind of secret sauce that you are, or special algorithm, the kind of secret sauce that you are using. So in 10-15 seconds, you put your audience in the framework that, so you framed their mind. They understand that your company, this is the kind of value proposition they are offering. They are helping this kind of market segment to solve this problem using this kind of secret sauce, okay? In 10-15 seconds. And this kind of statement, it's really important for you to master, because we call it, sorry. We call it elevator pitch, because imagine yourself, you're going into a conference and you met someone in the elevator. He asks you what you do. You have 10-15 seconds max to tell him what you actually do in a very attractive manner, so he would love to know more, or connect with you, or give you his business card to get to know more. So this is the kind of statement that you can use. In pitch, you have some alternative to the opening statement. We can watch 3 short video so we can understand what do I mean. You can use analogy, for example. I will share a video. Let me know if you're hearing the sound or not. So do you hear the sound, or it's not showing? It's not coming out, Edward?
Unfortunately, the sound, we're not hearing the sound as of right now.
Okay, let me, sorry, maybe I shared it wrong in the, let me just stop sharing and reshare with sound included so you can hear share sound. Okay, now it should work. Okay, you were able to hear the sound?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see, this is a device that going to treat skin, okay? Skin acne or any type of, like, it can also be used to remove some tattoo or remove some dwarf. We're gonna see another video about that. So in early days, that company used analogy. So to demonstrate how effective is their technology acting on skin, they used an analogy. They used a watermelon and they peeled that only very thin green layer by using their technology. So if you have this case, instead of the opening statement, a very short 10 or 12, 15-second video also can portray the same. Another type of video, it can be, you can use a proof. So here, as you can see, there is no sound. They're just providing you with a proof in a 3-minute treatment how this pen is acting on the skin to remove this dwarf. You can directly see the result, as you can see right now. And now they're gonna tell you after, for example, 24 hours, what's the impact, and after 8 weeks, how the skin is totally cured. A very short 34-second video was able to demonstrate that. So we said analogy, we said proof. Now another type is a story. You can tell a compelling story that can relay your message. And the story also, we're going to see it in the next slide, so that's why I included here. Let's watch this story together of Jeff Hoffman and see how and what kind of powerful message that you can deliver.
So I'm going to close with a little story. And it was another epiphany moment for me where I learned sort of what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur. And I learned it from sports, but it really applied. So the guy on the left is one of my best friends from home. That's Evander Holyfield. We spent a lot of time together over the years. Our career paths are radically different. He never had education. He made his career in sports. Obviously, I went through education and business, but a lot of our core values are the same. And so he was training for, not that fight, but I picked that picture because it's Mike Tyson being knocked out for the first time in his career. Still proud of that moment. Evander was training for a big fight. I think it might have been the Lennox Lewis fight. And I was there with him when he was doing this workout. And he does this exercise that he does 3 sets of 100 of. This exercise that most of the human race could not do twice. And he does it 300 times. That's why he looks like that, and I look like this. One day we were walking through the hotel in Vegas before a fight, and he peeled his shirt off and said, "Let's go to the pool." And I said, "I'll be in my room watching TV. Not going to go to the pool with that guy." So he's doing this exercise, and we're at the end, and I'm counting. And I said, 299, 300. And Evander said, "Jeff, was that 299 or 300? I said, "Evander, it was 300. And without taking his eyes off me, he kind of went back with this huge weight, all the sweat and those muscles rippling. And he said, "I think it was 299. And he did one more. And I made this mistake. I rolled my eyes. I was like, all right, whatever, 299, 300. And then he said, "Look at me." And I remember thinking, it's been a good life. I didn't think it was going to end here, but I made the fatal mistake. And I said, "Okay." And I looked at him. And he gave me this stare, and he told me something I never forgot because it applied to everything I've ever done in life. He said, "Jeff, the difference between 299 and 300 is the difference between heavyweight champion of the world and every other boxer." And he got up and walked away, and I sat there with goosebumps because I realized that was my mantra for the rest of my life. You will not succeed unless you give it everything you have. I realized that every day that I'm tired and it's late at night and I've already done 299 and that's almost 300, that's good enough. There is some guy in the gym next door doing 300. There is somebody in a business competing with you that did 300. And tomorrow, 299 was good enough Thursday, so 298 is going to work today. That's almost 299. I realized that the key to success in anything you do in life was set hard goals and don't stop until you get there. And I never forgot his lesson. I remember looking at him and thinking that's the reason that man made $250 million in the ring and became the heavyweight champion of the world, because he took a discipline to his work and his commitment that he never wavered from. I guess I will leave you with that whatever your idea is, you're only going to get there one way, which is set a goal of 300 and finish it.
Okay, so I intentionally used this story because it talked about entrepreneurship, has a great lesson. It is a 2-minute and something story. The power of story, you can have a 30-second story, or you can have a 2 or 3 minute story that can replace your entire pitch deck. So if you get it right, you can have your entire pitch deck. You can tell your entire pitch deck in a kind of storytelling mechanism. It really requires a lot of skills, but also it is one of the, if you want, technique that you can use. Now, after getting your opening statement right, we're going to share some tips and tricks, what you can do, what you need to avoid while performing your pitch. So, keep it simple. We talked about this when mentioning like the kind of vocabulary, the kind of jargon, how you can communicate. So all entrepreneurs spend countless hours thinking about every last detail about their business. But for an investor, less information is better. Too much information, you will get them disconnected. They will lost. They want your slide to be simple. Conveys a high-level idea. Leave the room for question. Simple, straightforward presentation. Always do better than detailed presentation, full of text and bullets. Remember, you don't have to say it all. They can ask you for a question. If they're interested enough, they can ask you for all these documents that we just talked about. So the purpose is to get them interested enough. Bullets. Sometimes you take some recommendation from some mentors, some coaches, like do bullets, avoid text, which is very true. But sometimes, whenever it's possible, a story, an image can do a better job than having something listed in bullet. So you evaluate your situation by think of it. Don't overcount on bullet. As we just said, you can tell a story. We discussed it. Again, keep your presentation short. Make sure you have plenty of time for questions. So rule of thumb, if you have, for example, 10 or 15 minutes, always use 1/3 of the time allocated for you to do your presentation and keep 2/3 for the Q&A. As you can see, I'm repeating all over this presentation a lot of idea. It's intentional because I really want to stress on these key idea because they are really important to get your pitch to the safe shore, to make it successful. A killer point, don't overstate market opportunities, okay? The investor in front of you, even if they are not expert in that industry, they can easily catch when there is a market opportunity that's overstated or you are overestimating. Use an objective methodology, either a top-down forecast. So, for example, most of people use it. We have this huge market and we are targeting for 1 or 2% of this huge market. Or you can have a bottom-up approach. If you already validated in the market, you can say, till today, this is our sales number. This is how we are going to grow our sales so we can reach that number. So it's a bottom-up approach. The importance, keep it objective. Coherence, make everything logical. We already mentioned it. I'm mentioning it here again. The market size need to fall align with your growth strategy, with your 3 to 5 years forecast, with the kind of problem, the kind of product or services that you are developing, with the kind of revenue streams that you are using. So all your presentation, all the information need to be a flow, okay, not disconnected pieces of information. Another killer point, and this is the most common one, whenever you asked for your pitch deck before, because people, the investment raising process is like, as we said, 6 to 18 months, they keep the same deck and they start sharing it all the way. But you progressed, you developed, you have new success. So always keep your deck updated with your status. Don't just send an old deck. It will clearly show and will be badly evaluated. Now, after the pitching, we're gonna talk about presentation tips, which we're gonna add with it, and we'll open space for question. Look at the audience always. Even if you're presenting online, practice to look directly in the camera, to establish eye contact, even virtually, and to give the impression that you are looking directly to your audience. Speak loud and clearly. It's very important for you to practice. You know it very well. You're excited. I still do the same mistake. And if you notice sometime now in my presentation, like, because I know it, like I was eating some word and speeding, then I paid attention and slowed down. Use a humor when appropriate. Again, as we saw in the storytelling, he extrapolated, had a joke about the swimming pool, and he continued his story. So when appropriate, you can use humor. Stay within the time. Practice and practice and practice to stay within the time. Don't put too much text. We already mentioned this. You can use images, graph, diagram. We listed different tools that you can use. Mistake happens. Just don't stop. Continue. If a mistake happened at the beginning of your presentation, which is the most common one, just restart. You don't need to apologize if it's something big. Just restart and continue. If it happened in the beginning, take a deep breath and continue. Everyone knows that it's a stressful exercise to pitch in front of an investor. They don't expect you to be perfect. Just accept a mistake and continue again and again. No time to say it all. Keep it simple. Say what's important to hook your investor so he can take you to the next step. Then you can share as much information as you like when asked for. Thank you. And now we'll open the floor for some questions that we can tackle.
All right. Let me quickly jump in there before we delve into the questions. Obviously, massive thank you to you, Fadi, for this very detailed presentation. I'm pretty sure it was very enlightening for all the participants. So this is a message to the startups present today. I hope you found the messages enlightening and that you managed to get some really good tips and tricks on how to nail your investment pitch. I am conscious of timing, so as Fadi mentioned, I would like to start the Q&A. I believe my colleague Evelyn have sent you a message in the chat for you to send questions. Now we have approximately 5 minutes for a Q&A, after which we'll have a small coffee break, and then we'll start with the second part of the workshop, which is the digital pitching. So yeah, 5 minutes for you to send, but just maybe to kick off the Q&A session. I've received a question from a participant prior to the webinar. And I think the question is definitely very, very relevant. So Fadi, here's the first question. So how can I convince investors to invest in my company when it's not yet making a profit?
Okay, even when it's not making a profit, let's go back to previous slide. The ship slide. Okay, even if it's not making profit, usually when you're working on an idea, you're still in the product development. Usually, most of startup presents themselves in this way. Like we are the ship here, okay, in the middle. we have a lot of potential, but we actually don't know to which port we are sailing. And this is that push back the investor. Even if you have at idea stage, you need to present your business potential. So investor, what are they looking for? They are looking for a business opportunity. You need to convince them that here where you are, you know exactly where you want to reach, you know exactly which route you have. As you can see here on the map, you have different route to reach the target, but you know exactly which route, you know exactly what do you need kind of, in terms of resources to reach your target. So they will be confident in you, even if you are still in idea stage. Okay, even if not idea stage, but you don't have like your product ready yet, hitting the market. So the accuracy of the information that you're presenting, the level of confidence, your team structure. So in idea stage, as we said, either you present traction and validation. So the investor will say, oh, the market is saying this is important as they want to buy it. Or you present a solid team, a solid, if you want, opportunity to get that investor in. If he sees that you really understand your market, you really understand your client, and you're working on the right solution, he's gonna get in.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fadi, for this detailed answer. Let's move on quickly. I see now in the chat we've received a couple questions, so really appreciate it. We'll try and cover those as quickly as possible, and after which we can have a small coffee break. So a first question, in addition to the documents we should send after the pitch, would you send the pitch deck? If yes, would you send a more complete deck with more text and information?
Definitely. And this is, thank you for this question. This is one of the mistakes the startup do, and we witness it in a lot of judgment panel. The pitch deck that you can send in an email, it's totally different from the pitch deck that you present in in pitching exercise. Okay, you can have a lot of text in a pitch deck that you can send in an email, because you are not communicating, you are not explaining. Images, diagram, they're not going to explain themselves. So you can add some text, and even you can add some text in the note. And when you convert it to PDF, there's an option that you can convert the note with them. So below each slide, you're going to have a paragraph of the text that you included in the note. So definitely, if you're going to send your pitch deck, send it with all details. Don't send the same pitch deck that you presented in an actual live exercise. And as I mentioned before your pitching exercise, have all these documents ready. Whatever you're asked for, you can directly send it. Also, this will give a professionalism and the trust to your investor.
Okay, that's quite clear. Thanks a lot, Fadi. Moving on to the next questions, we will try and answer the two last questions in the chat. So here's a question from Paul. Getting to know the audience, do you mean the customers or investor audience? Or do you mean we need to explain to investors how we know our customers?
Okay, actually, in this context, when I'm saying the audience, they are the investor. They are the ones that you are presenting to, okay? But definitely, if you see here, when we talk about the pitch itself, there is a slide when you talk about traction and validation here, where you explain that you understand your customer. So the pitching audience, they are the one listening to you during the pitch. So the evaluator, or if it's an exercise, or the investor if it's an actual investment pitching session. In your pitch, in the traction and validation here, slide 6, you need to tell and convince your investors that you really understand your client.
All right, thanks, Fadi. Let's take the last questions that we received from Michael. So if I do not get a chance to present it personally, does it make sense to drop the deck at the office of a potential investor?
Don't drop it. If you want to drop it, you can. Here you can do two things. Either drop a deck with all the details, so not the same deck as we just said that you're gonna actually present yourself, or you can shoot like a 2-minute video. Also, this is because any investment, they receive tens and tens of texts on a daily basis. So if you can, and they don't have time to go over all of them. Similar to the short videos that I presented on, if you want proof or analogy, you can have a short video, okay, like a 1-minute video, presenting your innovation and have your contact info at the end. So if he's interested, he's gonna contact you. So present your short video as a hook to hook him. This is something real nice and interesting. Let's add to get more. He will let one of the junior associates send you an email, ask you for more information.
Thank you.
That answers the question. So, all right, let's conclude the Q&A right now, because we don't have enough time, and we would really like to provide all the startups, with the opportunity to practice their pitching skills and get, really valuable, constructive feedback on their pitch, so that you feel comfortable when you're actually pitching in front of investors. So without further ado, let's take a couple minutes of a coffee break. So just 3-4 minutes, after which I kindly invite you to come back, and I'll explain a couple of housekeeping rules. I'll introduce you to the other experts, and then we can get going with the actual digital pitching. So many thanks, Fadi, for this